You're now listening to the Wandering Buffalo podcast with your hosts, Andrew Ganaic and Justin Goddard.
Hello and welcome to the Wandering Buffalo podcast. It is Tuesday, February 16th, 2021, and this is the first episode. We are broadcasting live in our living room, so get comfortable because you know we are. My name is Andrew Ganaic, and I am one of your hosts tonight, or whenever you're listening to this. And I just want to start off by saying thank you for clicking the play button and taking your time out of the day to listen to our podcast. Alongside me is my co-host, Justin Goddard. You can find us on Twitter at The Wandering Buff. We're going to start things off by telling you what this podcast is really all about, our goals for the future, and what our competitive edge is. So what I mean by that is like how we stand out amongst the herd, no pun intended. After that, Justin and I will briefly give you a small introduction into who we are, how we got here, and then we'll just dive into the meat and potatoes of this particular episode, which happens to be revolved around the QB position. After that, we'll do a solid recap and let you know what the future holds for us and hopefully you. So who are we? Again, we are the Wandering Buffalo podcast, and we're called that because some of us have lived in Buffalo while some of us are from Buffalo, but it always seems like us as fans are always on the move. Our main goal is to be ourselves, and what I mean by that is in no way, shape, or form do we claim to be professionals. We're just a couple of average Joes that loves talking about the Buffalo Bills, just like you. We thrive off by starting discussions that revolve around rumors, trades, free agency, game recaps, and in-depth analysis. Furthermore, we all enjoy having company, so what we want to do down the road is to have the listeners, such as you fellow wanderers, on our show. Because what is a podcast without discussion? So who am I? Well, again, my name is Andrew Ganaic. I am a Rochester native. After high school, I wandered my way to the University of Buffalo, lived there for about 5 years, and I gotta say, I have nothing but positive and fond memories of the good 716. After I finished my undergrad there, I went to grad school at NYU, and then I migrated back to Rochester, where I got my first job. And the one thing that helped really pass the time for my first desk job, I guess, was listening to podcasts. Mainly, they were all Buffalo Bills podcasts. But eventually, that listenership grew into a desire to start my own podcast with some friends, and well, here we are. Also, I don't discriminate against the drum or the flat. I grab whichever looks the crispiest. I honestly put the sauce on the side. That's how you keep them from getting soggy. And of course, as always, I get blue cheese on my wings. Justin, do you want to tell the people a little bit about yourselves?
Agreeing with you on the chicken wings. As long as they look good and you got a lot of blue cheese, I'm game for it. Like you said, my name is Justin Goddard. I am originally from Buffalo and wandered out to Rochester. Been a Bills fan as long as I can remember. I got pictures of me back when I was just 4 years old. The last championship run, I got the Bills logo shaved and dyed right into my head. So, there's obviously a lot of time there where we were dealing with some difficult times as Bills fans. But part of what really always kept me on board with the Bills is the community that grew through those times, the camaraderie and everybody always rallying together. Win, lose, we were always there for the team, and it's finally nice to see a nice product on the field. But it goes way deeper than that. If you're a Bills fan, you obviously know that. Things as recently as the JJ Watt charity, people vying for JJ to come to our team, $99 donations, trying to pay a little way, show a little good faith for something that's a good cause to him. And he's obviously a guy that's very important to him. He does a lot of community work, so hey, maybe it'll help us out, get him in town. I wouldn't hate to see it. But getting right to the meat and potatoes of what we wanted to talk about today is just kind of a state of the roster, and we're going to start with the quarterback position. Swing it off to you, Andrew. Get you a little started on your thoughts on Josh Allen this past year.
All right. So we're going to talk about a couple things about Josh Allen, but let's just break down this whole situation just in total. So, Josh Allen, do we extend him? Do we not? What would it look like, right? And there's a lot of layers to this. So, let's just talk real quick. Should we extend him or should we not? You look at situations like the Goff and Wentz situation, and then you look at other quarterbacks, franchise with quarterbacks who didn't extend them, and it seemed like that was the best idea. Probably Trubisky's situation was the closer to the, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have done that, and that's a good thing that we didn't, because he did have a pretty up year last year, and then we all know how that turned out. So Justin, where do you see yourself? Do you think we should extend him? Should we not extend him? And if we do, what do you think that looks like?
I think we go for the extension. You kind of look at for me, I look at the Dak Prescott situation. If before they started going back and forth, were originally looking at signing him around $28 million a year. Now they're 2-3 years down the line. You're talking $42 million a year to get him under contract. So just inherently with the way the quarterback market goes, that's just going to keep going up and up and up. And you know how the league is, everybody's looking for their guy. Until you have the guy, you're not really going to be relevant. So it's a little bit of a gamble. He had kind of a slower start to his career, but that was kind of to be expected. But what I do like about the risk involved with Josh Allen is he's shown growth over each year. It hasn't been as much up and down. It's been kind of a steady incline. So, I mean, it's a gamble, but it's also a gamble to kick it down the road another year. And, that number goes from 35, 40 to in the 45s. I think you're kind of in a window right now where you could do something like the Mahomes deal, where you kind of kick around that the contract comes in after the 5th-year extension or the 5th-year option, and then you kick a little bit of money down the road, and that could help out with the tight cap coming up this season.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about Josh Allen's stats, and that can help us break into this little discussion a little more. So this season, he completed 396 pass attempts. I'm sorry. He completed 396 out of 572 attempts. That's a completion percentage of 69.2%. That netted him 4,544 yards. That's an average of 7.9 yards per reception. He's got 37 TDs and 10 interceptions to show up. I'm going to say one of those doesn't count if you remember that Rams game. That wasn't an interception. He's got the long of 55 and a quarterback rating of 107.2. And these stats are brought to you by ESPN. So definitely an up year for him. And according to SpotRack.com, they estimate that he should earn an average of 4 years, about 40 million, so 160 million over 4 years, roughly. One thing to note is that currently, according to overthecap.com, we only have like $1.8 million. So I'm sure everyone here knows that we're going to see some players get cut for the cap. I'm curious to see what that contract extension looks like. I agree. It probably would look team friendly, kind of like the Mahomes deals, where they kind of hide a lot of it in the signing bonus, if my contract memory serves me correct. I think it's a no-brainer that I say we royally, I have no say in the executive room, but I think Bean definitely picks up that 5th-year option. I think it's like $20 million. I think it got a little higher because he was like a top 10 draft pick and he made the Pro Bowl this year, which I think there was something in his current contracts that made him made that 5th-year option a little more. But anyway, but like regardless, $20 million for a year for Josh Allen, you kind of have to take that, right? Um, so my opinion with you is yes, I think we should definitely extend Josh Allen. Um, but is that a risky thing to do? To go back to this Goff and Wentz thing, like you look at the Eagles and the Rams. The Rams basically paid in draft capital to get rid of Jared Goff. I give a lot of respect to them for that because they basically openly admitted we made a mistake. Take him, take him. Like what's that?
Want to double down on the mistake.
You never want to double down on the mistake. That's how you get to the old Bills of the past. um, but and then you look at the Eagles situation. I was under the impression they were gonna trade him sometime last week, but it just seems like it hasn't happened yet, which is kind of interesting. Because no matter what, when they trade him, they're still going to eat like 40 million in cap, I believe, or some ridiculous number like that, and that's wild too. But they're also, they're like, you know what, he's not the guy. We don't want him here. We're gonna have to we're gonna trade him, and they're openly admitting that. So I got a lot of respect for them for doing that. I think it's kind of crazy how they want 2 first-round picks for a guy who pretty much performed on the same level of Trubisky statistically. I'm not saying Wentz is Trubisky. I don't think anyone would say that. But yeah, I think we should definitely extend him. I don't know how long it will be, but a 4-year, $40 million deal seems like it'd be in the right area. Anything you else want to add to that, Justin?
So going with the risk involved in it, I do think there's something to be said for, Carson Wentz had Frank Reich. Frank Reich goes to take the head coaching job in Indianapolis, obviously. By the way, that's my prediction on where Wentz ends up. He ends up back with Frank Reich in Indy, and they get 2 1s for him because as you get closer to the draft, there's only so many quarterbacks to fill, so many holes, and that's just the price you end up paying. But as far as Josh goes right now, I feel like there was a kind of a blessing in disguise that, you're bringing back the entire infrastructure around him. So, you're bringing back Brian Dable, you're bringing back your offensive pieces. You got the same quarterback coach. You got the same quarterback room for now. We'll discuss that a little bit on what we'd like to see happen with the quarterback room behind him. But as far as everything lining up for the start of his career, he's had continuity across the board. He hasn't had to learn different playbooks and all that. So now when they come into training camp this year, they're not at a square one. They're building off of where they left off last year. So I think that with all that in place, I think there's a chance that there's even another step as he's more comfortable in the system. They're not learning the X's and O's. They're kind of fine tuning and finessing what he's already doing. So, I like I said, there's a risk involved in any contract you're giving out in the NFL. But as hardworking as he's been, and the improvements that he's making year over year, the work that he's doing with Jordan Palmer in the offseason, those are the intangibles of a guy that just wants to get better. And if I have to put my money on a gamble like that, I'm taking a guy like that every time.
That's a great point to make. You definitely can't measure those intangibles. One thing that seems interesting is I really think I'm really curious to see what this contract looks like when it does get signed. Just because we haven't really seen Bean make a contract of this magnitude. I mean, we saw him make it with Tre'Davious White, but compared to what Josh is gonna make, Tre'Davious White doesn't even make half of it, right? At least that's what it's estimated to be. That's kind of wild to think about. And there's a lot of things that go into this. You have to, well, like when does he sign it? Does he sign it before Dak? We saw that when Tre'Davious White got his contract extension, it happened before Jalen Ramsey. And I thought that was a great idea because Jalen Ramsey, I think he signed for like 20 million and Tre'Davious White signed for 17. So we got him for $3 million cheaper than what it could have been. Maybe Bean has that same line of thinking and goes like, we got to sign before like Lamar or Baker or Dak. So maybe that contract comes sooner than we all think. Um, you know, and
To
to
touch on your
go ahead.
point there, I think something we'll get into further in another episode. But I do also think it's going to be a very interesting off season for Brandon Beane. We've seen him since he came to the Bills be very meticulous and methodical with how he's playing with the cap. So he always has some wiggle room. Um, Obviously, with the COVID season and the cap floor being somewhere around 175, 185, it's not really solidified yet. But we've never really seen him have to operate against the cap so far in his tenure with Buffalo. And I think that's going to be a really interesting scenario to watch play out as well.
Yeah, and if Bean does something historically that he does with some of his older contracts, it always seems like he builds in and out. Most recently, I know everyone's calling for like Vernon Butler, Quentin Jefferson, Mario Addison to be cut. And the reason why they are calling for that is because there's not that much dead money in comparison to the cap space that they're going to free up. And the beauty of that is that Bean made that possible through the construction of those contracts. And even mid-season, we saw what Quentin Spain, right? We signed him to a 3-year, $15 million deal, and then out of nowhere, he doesn't want to be playing a different role. We cut him. He's off the books. So we might see something like that built in, maybe. I don't know. Not saying I don't want Josh Allen on my team. I want him to be on there, but we don't know what Bean might do, and I think I'm very interested to see what that contract looks like. Any more topics? Any more things you want to discuss about QB1 there, Justin?
Uh, I think we pretty much covered that. I think the Josh Allen case is pretty straightforward. He's going to get an extension with the Bills. It's a fun conversation to have, and there's a lot of layers to it, like you said. But that deal is going to get done. We know that. What I think is interesting is what's going on behind him. Um, it's not the most intriguing position on the field, but the backup
Can
quarterback
you
position
can
is
you
something.
say that again? You kind
The
of bugged out there? Can you repeat that sentence one more time? Sorry.
one of the it's not the most intriguing position on the field, but I do think there's a very interesting dynamic behind him at the backup quarterback position. Um, Currently have Matt Barkley's contract is up. From all accounts, they love the guy. He seems to be a great locker room leader. Um, Seems to be really helpful in Josh Allen's development on the field. But I also think that this team, you know, last year we were one game away from the Super Bowl, and you never want to see it happen. But if Josh Allen goes down and misses any extended amount of time, I think this team is too solid to be putting the ball in the hands of Matt Barkley, and I think that's really a position, a little bit under the radar, but definitely a spot where we could upgrade. And I got I got one guy in mind that I want, and I think you know who it is.
Should we say it on the count of three?
One, two, three. It's Fitzpatrick.
Fitzpatrick. Come on,
Yes,
man.
yeah, buddy.
I
So
love that guy.
I came across a stat today that I thought was really interesting, and I never thought of. So Ryan Fitzpatrick has never played in a playoff game. He's been on two 10-6 teams that have missed the playoffs.
Jets.
Yeah, and so I think it'd be really interesting. He's always had nice things to say about Buffalo. He's obviously beloved by the fan base here. a little bit more so after he left than when he was throwing some interceptions. But give the guy the chance to retire here. I would love to see the Bills win a Super Bowl and Fitzpatrick be the backup quarterback and see him end his career with a ring and retire a Buffalo Bill. I think he gives you a little bit more of Josh Allen's play style as well. Whereas, if Barkley's coming into the game, there's no similarities between how they play the quarterback position. And I think, Josh goes down in the middle of the game, your whole game plan is derailed, and you got to fix that on the fly. Fitz has a little bit more of that. He'll run around a little bit. He'll take a hit. He'll sling the ball out there. I think that would just be a great fit for the backup position. And I think they could do it pretty cost effectively as well.
Yeah, when I think of Fitz, I have a story to tell about Matt Barkley too. But definitely with Fitz, this past season, when I'm just thinking about, so I was in Long Island in Bayside, and the Bills had already played, and I was just watching the Dolphins play the Raiders, and actually Bayside is in Queens. I'm sorry for anyone who's living here or who's listening and lives in Long Island or the New York City area. My bad. So I just remember they took Tua out, and I was like, this should be interesting. They put in Fitzpatrick. Well, you know how Fitzpatrick goes. He just chucks it, and as he's loading up this ball, he's getting face masked. So his head is basically like almost 180 degrees around from where it should be, and throws a bomb, and it gets caught. Tack on 15 yards at the end, kicks the Raiders out of the playoff contention, and I think that was their 10th win, I believe, or something along those lines. But regardless, I think that when you want to sign a backup quarterback, a lot of people are of the opinion, maybe we should sign someone similar to who we have at the starting quarterback position. And I'm going out on a limb here, but I think I recently heard this. I think I'm going to credit this to Bruce Nolan, but he mentions that he wants variance in the backup role, and I agree. I don't trust Matt Barkley if we hand the keys over to him. I want to throw something out there that's a little a little weird, like throw the defense on their heels. I think Fitzpatrick has enough of that weirdness in him to make those to make him a great QB2, and we've seen him step into games and almost pull out, and he has pulled out some amazing wins. What are your thoughts about that on terms of QB variance in the QB2 position?
So I think that Fitz still gives you that variance that you're looking for, and I'm also looking at your quarterback room then would be, we haven't gotten to him yet, but you got Fitzpatrick backing up Josh Allen. Your hope is that he's just a clipboard holder, helping Josh. Obviously the guy went to Harvard. You hear that on every broadcast. He's got it between the ears. And, last year we saw a big step up in Josh's play on the field. A lot more is clicking with him now. So you got a guy like Fitzpatrick behind him. You got a guy in Davis Webb, if he sticks around on the practice squad. You got three super smart guys, and I think that's kind of the last piece for Josh. Is just not that he's not seeing it right now, but the weird looks that defenses give you that these guys have seen before, and maybe he gets thrown for a loop on something, and then he comes back to the sidelines and hey, we saw this before. Look out for where does this linebacker shift? Where did the safeties disguise? And I think that's just kind of the next piece in really putting the rest of the puzzle together. And I think that'd be a great quarterback room.
Yeah, you want to talk about journeyman. Fitzpatrick is that journeyman. I think the only other quarterback that has been shuffled around as much as he has is McCown, right?
Fitz actually has the most teams.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yep.
that's something. He's more of a wanderer than we are. But maybe we can want him. Hopefully, he'll wander his way back to the 716. Um, but before we move on to the other quarterbacks, I do want to talk about the story when we found out the Bills signed Matt Barkley. So, for those of you who are listening or watching, um, Justin and I worked together. I won't say the name of the restaurant, but we'll just call it Rochester's Finest Italian. If you can't hear me, I'm using air quotes around finest. um, but I remember when I came in, Justin was saying, Matt Barkley, Matt Barkley, Matt Barkley. And I was like, oh God, what's going on? What is this guy going to do? Like, we're going to get smoked by the Jets. My Sunday's going to get ruined. And then he just balls out. Oh my God. And we just destroyed the Jets. It was amazing, right? Like, I think at that point, I had a lot of confidence in this offense because if someone like Matt Barkley can come in and do that to an NFL team, and winning in the NFL is hard. I don't care what anyone says. Like, it's very hard to do. So I'm personally very impressed with the effort that Barkley put forth that day. But I think Fitzpatrick has way more than Barkley will ever have, and that's not a knock towards Barkley. I know he does a lot. He's a great leader. Bean raves about him and what he does. So I really enjoy who he is. But if it were me, I'd have Fitzpatrick. Um, yeah,
That game that Barkley came in and lit up the Jet, I think it was like 31-7. It was a stupid fun game. But we've also seen Barkley in limited action since, and it was very much more the Barkley that I expect when he comes into the game. And touching on all the things you said, I got nothing but love for Matt Barkley. I just think that, you know, on a team this good, you want to be building your depth at every position and have the next man up mentality. And if you got your starting quarterback out for 3 games, most teams in the league are going to be in trouble. But, a couple names we haven't even talked about, and Andy Dalton. There's not that many guys out there, but when you're this close to pushing a Super Bowl window, you got to go out and get one of those guys. You got to have that backup position locked up.
right. So let's quickly run through these other guys real quick. So Jake Fromm, Mr. Elite. What's your thoughts about him?
I would say we're probably at a pretty inconclusive state with him right now. Um, he's kind of just a luxury development quarterback. See if anything ever happens. But with how we didn't have the 2020 offseason, there was such limited media availability during the regular season, and this guy was the emergency COVID quarterback. He wasn't really doing much of anything, so I can't really. It doesn't cost us much to keep him on the practice squad, so let him hang out and see whatever happens. But he's not really moving the needle for me on anything, and it's probably because I haven't really seen anything with him. So
Right. Jake Fromm. I remember when he got drafted, and then right after those elite messages were posted, and all I could think was, "Oh my God, not this, not this." That's like I, I don't know how you send those messages back then and just think, that seems pretty good. That seems good by me. Um, for any of you viewers out there or listeners who can't see me, rather, um, I'm not white. So I thought that was a very interesting situation. Very, very interesting. I think the only reason why we would keep him is mainly because we spent a fifth round draft pick on him. He doesn't do anything exciting for me just because we haven't seen him play. So maybe I'm not giving him enough credit, but we'll see. Davis Webb, what are your thoughts?
The two, I'm much more interested in Davis Webb. Touched on it before. Just the intelligence piece that he brings to the game. I think he also offers something that goes really under the radar. He's running the scout team offense pretty much every week, so he's got some athletic traits. He's got some skills. He'll never be a starting quarterback in the NFL, but there's something to be said for that guy that goes into character when you're playing the Rams next week and you got to go into practice and you're the guy to set up situations about you got to go be a Lamar Jackson. I think that brings more value to than anything I've seen, heard. I haven't even heard anything about Jake Fromm. And when they draft these guys, they want to put good news about out there about them. And just not hearing anything at all, it doesn't. If I'm choosing between the two, give me Davis Webb 7 days a week.
Right. I think with Davis Webb, I actually didn't know this. He was the one who set up the Florida practice between him and not him, Justin. I'm sorry, Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. I did not know that he set that up. So Cole Beasley, Gabriel Davis, and other players were all there because he organized it. That's some true leadership right there. That's something that piqued my interest. I just found that out actually a couple days ago, so that's pretty good. Um, any other free agents you want to talk about that would be interesting if the Bills signed?
I mean, my two top candidates there would be Fitzpatrick and probably Andy Dalton. I, the backup quarterback position is hard. There's not even 32 teams in the NFL that have a starting caliber quarterback. So when you're going into, well, we need an elite quarterback in Josh Allen and then trying to find a starting caliber quarterback to back him up, it's a hard ask, but I think we could do worse than Barkley, but we could also do better. And I think that's something Bean and McDermott always talk about. They're always evaluating every position on the roster. Every spot on the roster has to be earned. So I have full faith in the organization that it's something that they're going to visit. It's something they're going to look at, and we'll see how it goes there.
Right. So I gotta hold myself from giggling a little bit every time the word elite gets thrown around. Now I just think about Jake Fromm. But yeah, another quarterback that we could pick up from free agency that I heard the Bills were interested in when he got drafted was Mitchell Trubisky, and I don't know if I'm being, but I guess they were high on him. Do they swing at someone like that? I would. I personally don't want Trubisky. I'd rather have the Red Rocket Andy Dalton in here, but Fitzpatrick over everything, of course. But I just don't want Trubisky here. And if he does come here, I trust this organization, and I will stand by them, and I will be the biggest supporter of Trubisky. But on a personal level, I'm like laissez-faire, hands off.
I'll kind of go the other way there. I'm not really interested in seeing him. He's a young enough guy that the book's not necessarily written on him. But I also think with that high first round pedigree, he's he's still young. He's what, fourth, fifth season. So I think that he's the kind of guy that'll probably go to a quarterback hungry team. Think like a Washington, a Carolina, someone like that, and try to get like a 1 year prove it deal and see if he can get. Sometimes a quarterback just needs a change of scenery. With the draft pedigree, there was somebody out there that was scouting him when he was coming out that didn't get a crack at him, and he comes free, and they think that their system and their coaching and their development could get different results. And it happens from time to time. I'm not interested in being the team to take that chance on him.
Yeah, it'd be surprising if the Bills signed Trubisky because it would remind me of when Marcus Mariota signed with the Raiders. They already had Derek Carr, and Marcus Mariota is fresh off his rookie contract. Instead of finding a franchise that he could probably compete for the starting role, he was like, nah, I'm cool on the bench. I'm cool on the bench. That's basically what Mitchell Trubisky would do if he signed here. He'd be like, nah, I'm cool on the bench. He would remind me of Alex from Blue Mountain State. Like, nah, I'm good. I'm good sitting on the bench, bro. Like,
string quarterback.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's another layer to that too. Is if you got a guy like Trubisky and he's that young and he's okay with signing up on being a backup quarterback. There's not enough fire there if you're that young and you've thrown in the towel on starting somewhere, and that it doesn't move the meter for me at all. I'm not at all interested in seeing Mitchell Trubisky.
yeah. Let's go. Let's try to get good old Fitzpatrick. Any other topics or things you want to talk about in regards to the quarterback position?
I think that's about it for the quarterback position. You got anything else?
No. Well, I guess we're just going to wrap up this episode. So thank you all again for listening and or watching the very first episode of the Wandering Buffalo podcast. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms. You can find us by searching the Wandering Buffalo podcast or at the Wandering Buff Pod. Or you can email us at the Wandering Buffalo podcast at gmail.com. We plan on having some great guests on the show in the future, and we hope that you can be a part of them. So please reach out to us. If you want to reach out to us individually, you can find me on Twitter or Instagram at _2changs_. Justin, do you want to tell the people where they can find you?
So if you guys are looking for me on Twitter, you can find me at jgods22. Love to take some questions for the show if you guys have any thoughts, any feedback.
All right. Well, if you'd like to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or from any other podcasting platform, it'd be much appreciated, and it just helps us out as we're trying to figure out how to morph this podcast. And if you're on YouTube, go ahead, like, comment, smash that subscribe button while you're at it. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. No, please do that. All right, until next week, we'll see you then. Go Bills.